Welcome to episode 1 of Friends in Film, a podcast where myself, Cooper Hood, and my co host Josh Straley talk about the latest movie news and theatrical releases. Josh, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself?
Well, Cooper, I am a 20-year-old college student majoring in liberal arts, soon to be journalism, and I am glad to be here and talk about our mutual love for all things film related.
Yeah, and I'm Cooper Hood. I am 21, also a current college student studying communications. Besides movies, I really like sports, specifically basketball and football, and writing, and then just reading things about movies usually in my spare time. A little background on the podcast. This is kind of a expansion on something Josh helped me with on a school project for this last semester. Where I had to do a podcast, and we talked about some expectations leading up to episode 7 of Star Wars, and just so happens that we love doing it so much, we decided, why don't we do this on a bi-weekly basis for right now. So that's our current plan. Um, you guys will be hearing us hopefully every other Tuesday. There might be some delays here and there, but for the most part, every other Tuesday from here on out, you will have an episode of Friends and Film with me and Josh. But on today's episode, we will be discussing our thoughts and theories on Star Wars: The Force Awakens, the the newest installment in the Star Wars franchise, which we were both so excited to see. We saw it together opening night. But before we talk about Star Wars, we're going to talk a little bit about what's happened the past few weeks in the movie world with some latest news, pictures, rumors, trailers, box office records, just a little bit of everything. Um, yeah, we got a lot of stuff. So we're going to start off by talking about something that actually just dropped today, which are some photos for Doctor Strange. Earlier today, EW released 6 new photos for the movie, which is the next installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe after Captain America: Civil War, which comes out in May. It is directed by Scott Derrickson, stars Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange, who after a car accident and damaged his hands, he's no longer able to be a surgeon, so he tries to find a healing way, or a way to heal them, and magic is the only way he can do that. And then we don't know why, but he has to save the world from some sort of unknown threat. But yeah, EW released 6 photos today. Josh, what'd you think of them?
I personally thought they looked fantastic. I had never seen a Doctor Strange comic before. I didn't know what to expect, but as soon as I saw Benedict Cumberbatch in the getup, I was immediately sold on the film because I had my doubts about what a Doctor Strange magician film could be. I was thinking another Disney Fantasia for the longest time, and that just didn't sit well with me.
Yeah, and for me, I was already very much looking forward to this movie, just because I'm a big fan of Benedict Cumberbatch and the Marvel movies as a whole. I mean, there's not really a bad one of the bunch, in my opinion. And I mean, these photos just uh, look incredible. You can find them on EW, also known as Entertainment Weekly. We got a couple looks at Benedict Cumberbatch in the cloak and using his powers. And then we also got a photo showing off what they called the Chamber of Relics, which has some wear and some other, I'm sure, Easter eggs hidden in there, but based on the photo, it's kind of hard to tell. And then probably my favorite one of the bunch is what appears to be Benedict Cumberbatch in some sort of quantum realm or other dimension or something, and it's got these crazy colors and he's like falling backwards and it just looks awesome. And it's something we haven't really seen before in a Marvel movie.
It's super psychedelic. When I first looked at it, I thought it was like a Jackson Pollock that had just been discovered. But then it wasn't until Cooper pointed out to me that that's actually Benedict Cumberbatch looking all trippy. So, but also the concept art as well of Benedict Cumberbatch looks like when he's about recovering from the car accident. That one as well.
Yeah, there's been previous set photos showing him kind of going on that journey to find who will eventually be the Ancient One, played by Tilda Swinton, and he's accompanied by Chiwetel Ejiofor, who's supposedly playing Baron Mordo. how that relationship goes down, I have no idea. There was some thought he would be like the main villain basically of the film, but it looks like Mads Mikkelsen will be in that role, but we don't know who he's playing at this point. I literally have no guesses. um, but I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be excited for this movie, and looking at the images, I can't wait to see some sort of teaser, hopefully with Captain America: Civil War. But I mean, based on early reactions, it looks like it's another hit for Marvel.
Yeah, that 6 month away from the release date, it will usually line up really well with when Marvel releases those trailers. So I bet you when you go see Captain America in theater, you'll be looking at a Doctor Strange promo before the kickoff of the film.
Yeah, and if not a trailer by itself, maybe a post-credit scene. I know Marvel's been doing those a lot, but we'll have to wait and see. In another story with Marvel, last week, The Wrap reported that Kurt Russell is director James Gunn's favorite currently to play the part of Star-Lord's father in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. This was reported early on in the process. Russell has not met with Marvel or read a script or anything, but would you be on board with Kurt Russell joining the MCU as Chris Pratt's dad?
Absolutely. I only know Chris Pratt, I'm sorry, Kurt Russell from one other film, which was Fast and Furious 7. And from there, I thought he fit that entire character of being mysterious, as well as, he looked like he had this sarcastic attitude about him that would just fit so well with Chris Pratt's character in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, and I mean, when the first thought I had when this was kind of reported, besides, think my thoughts on who he could play, potentially, like what character, made me think of an old Disney movie, Sky High, where he is actually a superhero. He's like the only real superhero in the world. But Kurt Russell's a great actor, and I can't wait to see him in The Hateful Eight, hopefully this weekend. But I mean, it's always good to add talent, and I think Kurt Russell would be great as a part of the Guardians cast.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I just think his entire persona is perfect for Marvel. Maybe they should have had him a long time ago for maybe a different role. I don't know, but I'm just glad to see him a part of it.
Yeah, they have very similar qualities that I think Kurt Russell and Chris Pratt would play so well off each other. But on the flip side of Marvel, they have a competitor known as DC, and there's reports going around that the runtime for basically the beginning of the DC Extended Universe, as they're calling it, the runtime for Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice has been revealed. A German car company, or not a German car company, a German theater chain reported on their site, because they've been selling tickets for pre-sales and stuff, and they are labeling the movie at a 2-hour and 31-minute runtime. Josh, you're rolling your eyes. What are you thinking?
2.5 hours. I get it. It's a mashup. You got to have time for Batman. You've got to have time for Superman, and to develop the plot between them. But my excitement level for this film has gone down so much since the first trailer. I was super excited to see how they would play out this idea of Superman being this like larger than life godlike character and Batman taking him on. But ever since they showed off Doomsday, I am like, well, the movie's called Batman versus Superman, and you already blow this idea that they're not going to be fighting each other throughout the entire film.
Well, I mean, that's not something. I mean, before they even showed off Doomsday, it seems very likely that at some point they'll have to team up together. Just kind of like in Captain America: Civil War, I think at some point both sides will have to put aside their differences and come together to stop some greater threat from the world.
I just didn't think that's how you should sell it, though. I mean, Marvel hasn't even teased the idea yet that could happen. But I was so excited for this idea that Superman and Batman would just be battling it out throughout the entire film, and then maybe at the end, Superman puts his hand down to Bruce Wayne picks him up and bam, Dawn of Justice. You know, but it was just too soon for me. Too soon. Jesse Eisenberg being cast as Lex Luthor, you were setting yourself up for having an alternate villain for Superman and Batman to team up against. But I just think you blew the lid off it way too soon. The release date's still 2 months away.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, the runtime. I think it's 9 minutes longer than Man of Steel, which is the first installment DC put out, and that's a long movie. And the last 30 minutes of it or so is just Superman and Zod throwing each other through buildings. And I mean, it looks cool at parts, but it's like, okay, like this could have ended a while ago.
Yeah, you can only destroy so many buildings before you start to think, all right, show me something else.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand. I don't know. I don't understand why DC felt the need to put everything in that trailer. Like, if you cut it 30, like I've seen a fan edit where I had the exact same thought. Where if they cut it right at the roar of Doomsday, and then put the date up there, like that would be a great trailer. It's like, oh, like what was that? Like, what's gonna come? And then now we already know, and we know that Wonder Woman's there for the final fight. And at that point, Batman and Superman have already teamed up, and like there's rumors of like Aquaman and Cyborg and Flash and like all these other people having cameos. And I know it's called Dawn of Justice, and it's like basically the first entryway into the Justice League universe. But I mean, I don't know. This is why I think Marvel had the better approach, and they weren't even. I think at the beginning they didn't think that at some point they'd be putting out in 2017 they'll have 3 movies a year coming out, plus Netflix shows, TV shows. Like they're pumping out content like crazy. But DC just like, okay, we got to catch up. Let's put all of our heroes in this one movie, even if it's for like a minute, and then I'll do their separate movies. We'll do a villain movie. We'll do every villain introduced there, and then have them pop up in different ones. It's just like, like these movies are going to be so jam packed. I feel like it's going to feel like probably in the first viewing it will feel like a lot of fun to watch because you're just like, wow, everything's happening so quick. But then you're going to be like, okay, that a lot just happened. And that could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. I don't know at this point.
If there's anything we've learned from the Marvel MCU, it's patience pays off. And with Zack Snyder and I guess Christopher Nolan being a executive producer on all of this, they're just moving forward way too fast for me.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I I'm not. I don't hate Man of Steel as much as some other people do, but the DC franchise universe, everything, like it worries me for sure. Because I mean, I know like I saw In the Heart of the Sea with my dad, and the trailer for BVS played beforehand, and he turned to me and goes, "Who's that girl?" It's like, yeah, it's like nobody's gonna know really, and even like Doomsday, people are already making fun of what he looks like and stuff. Like that's not a great start. And like I wasn't a fan of how Lex Luthor was kind of portrayed there in the film or like in the trailer, but I don't know. I don't really want to bag on DC a bunch just because it's hard to really say what it's going to be when they're only a film in. So I hope it works out because I mean I like Ben Affleck. He's a good actor, and they've got other. I mean I think Suicide Squad will be better than BVS probably, but it won't make nearly as much money. And I know we disagree on how much BVS is going to make in the box office, but I still think it's going to kill it.
I'm still going to see it. I'm probably going to enjoy it, but I'm not as excited as I used to be.
Yeah. So let's move away from comic book movies and go to some book adaptations. And this first one you're a much bigger fan of than I am, the Harry Potter world.
I've seen them. I think that's the extent of my fanship.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't seen any Harry Potters, so you by default are the Harry Potter expert. Yeah. So, the first teaser trailer for the prequel, basically, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, hit the web about 2 weeks ago, and the prequel, as I said, is coming before the Harry Potter franchise starts, and it stars Eddie Redmayne, Oscar winner, as Newt Scamander. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Um, but he is a writer in New York's secret community of witches and wizards. He has a briefcase he carries around that are full of magical beasts, but somehow they escape, and then this causes other wizards around the area to come after him. Watching the teaser, what'd you think?
Um, it was it left a lot of questions. It starts off with people chanting a spell, and then it jumps right into the problem, and then the only action part you see is him jumping out into the street and then beginning to cast a spell, and then cut. I didn't really know what to take away from it, but I did enjoy watching the Harry Potter films. I haven't read the books, but as a franchise, it was entertaining, and if it captures any of that essence, I would love to see this film.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I haven't seen any of the previous Harry Potters. I will at some point, probably before this movie comes out. You know, it's not really necessary, I guess. But just I'm familiar with the whole lore and everything that comes with this movie. But I mean, I have no real complaints. Like you said, maybe it's a teaser, so there's not a lot it can show. But I mean, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun just to watch. I think Eddie Redmayne's one of like the best up and coming actors. Um, as I said, he already won an Oscar. He'll probably be nominated again for Danish Girl. Um, but I mean, he just constantly does good work, and hopefully, unlike Jupiter Ascending, apparently he's not so good in that, but hopefully he can bring an Oscar caliber performance. I'm not saying he's going to win an Oscar for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, but just bring that type of style and the pedigree to a prequel basically. But I mean, yeah, it looks fine, looks fun. I wasn't really interested in seeing it before I saw the teaser, but I'll probably see it now.
I do. I think Harry Potter's got a lot that you can enjoy, and I think once you get around to actually seeing the films, you'll appreciate a lot of it much more.
Yeah, and speaking of prequels, there's another franchise out there that wants to do some prequels. Apparently, that being the Hunger Games. So the final installment of the Hunger Games franchise, Hunger Games: Mockingjay Part 2, hit theaters earlier this year to some mixed reception. I know fans seem to like it, critics, a lot of them seem to hate it. Not really sure why yet, but um, Lionsgate doesn't want to stop making money because no matter if you hate it or like it or whatever, it still made quite a bit of money at the box office. And Lionsgate wants to do prequels or spin-offs or sequels or whatever. But thankfully, Jennifer Lawrence has some common sense, and she told Variety, "I wouldn't be involved. I think it's too soon. They've got to let the body get cold, in my opinion." So, if they announced tonight that there's a Hunger Game prequel coming out in 2017, would you be interested?
Well, I'd be interested, but I have to agree with Jennifer Lawrence. It's way too soon to do something like that. I mean, like Harry Potter's waited a good, 5 years, I think, since the Deathly Hallows Part Two, and now they're ready to kind of push you back into the wizarding world. Star Wars waited 10 years for their next film to drop. Lionsgate needs to take some time, plan these stories out, and then go for it. Because I'm all about Hunger Games prequels. Whether it's the first war in Pan Am, or maybe it's a jump back to the Haymitch Hunger Games, which I would love to see and learn about. But I know you can make money off it, but just build some anticipation first, please.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I think I would be there opening night, I'm sure, just because I like the Hunger Games franchise. But Catching Fire is the peak for me, and I thought both the Mockingjay Part 2 kind of, I don't know, it could have been a lot more. I think I'm gave it a favorable review just because it is a Hunger Games movie, and I don't know. But the idea of a prequel, same with you, only a prequel about Haymitch's games and learning about a young Haymitch. I'd be interested in seeing that, or the fall of everything and like learning how and why the districts had to separate and all this stuff. Those would be the only two things I'd really be interested in seeing. Spin-offs, I don't know how you could really spin it off at this point. There's nothing really interesting. And then sequels, I don't know what they're gonna like, unless history just repeats itself and they do a 40 years later thing and it's some other family that, but then they have to do a rebellion again. It'd just be so stupid. It'd just be a giant waste of money, and people would just give it crap just because it'd obviously be just a money maker.
Yeah, and I think that's why the Hunger Games Part Two was such a disappointment for people, is because it felt so slow until the final uptick, and if they would have just meshed Part One and Part Two together, that could have really helped that final installment of the series by mixing politics with action. But yeah, Lionsgate, if you somehow find your way to the corners of the internet and are listening to me, please just wait 1 or 2 more years, then get started.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Wait a couple years, see how people, if they're even interested. I don't know how many people are really interested in seeing a prequel at this point in the game. But not a prequel, but a sequel to the original trilogy, Star Wars: The Force Awakens, hit theaters as we were recording on the 28th. It hit theaters technically 10 days ago, but really it's like 11 because it comes out on the 17th. I don't care what they say on releases. It releases on the Friday. It releases the Thursday. It doesn't matter. But it shattered pretty much every record in the book. We're going to do a quick rundown.
Here we go. Hold on to your hats.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Got all this stuff from Newsarama, which got it from Box Office Mojo and Variety and all these other reports, but Newsarama just kind of compiled it all into one article. We'll start off Thursday night. It broke a new record, 57 million, which beat 43.5 million of Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2. Then opening day record of 120.5 million, which broke the previous record, again held by Harry Potter 8 at 91 million, so it beat it by $29 million. Crazy stuff. Then the opening weekend record, it beat the Jurassic World record that they set earlier this year at 524.9 million. Star Wars went and scored 529 million, so got another $5-ish million in there. Then Monday set a new record with 40.1 million. Tuesday 37.3 million. Got the quickest 300 million domestic. And then it had a 7-day total of 391.1 million, which was almost 100 million more than the previous record by Jurassic World. Jurassic World got a ton of money overseas in its first week. Then Christmas Eve got 27.5 million, which demolished the record previously held by Avatar of 11.2. So an extra $16 million on Christmas Eve, where you're supposed to be spending time with your family. People went out and saw Star Wars, and I can't blame them.
Star Wars is good family time. What are you talking about?
Is. I've seen it with friends, family, strangers, everybody. And then the final record, which it just officially broke today, is the quickest to $1 billion. It got there in 12 days, which the previous record was held by Jurassic World again, but they did it in 13. So Josh, which of these records stands out to you the most?
It's got to be the fastest to $1 billion. Not in the way you would think, because I was expecting it to break it the first weekend, and I was wrong by $700 million. So I'm going to have to say that shocked me, but mainly because it did not drop in Asia like I was heavily anticipating.
Yes, you were expecting a $500 million China debut.
Hey, there's 1 billion people over there. At least a quarter of them had to have gone and seen the movie, or will, I suspect. And I think that's what's going to push it over top of Avatar for the highest grossing of all time.
I mean, it's already 15th all time at 1,090,600,000. So I mean, it's a third of the way there basically. I think the thing that stands out to me isn't really the records at this point. It's just kind of the split between domestic and worldwide. It's made 544.6 domestic. It's made 546 like in every other country at this point, which is crazy. It's 49.9 in America and Canada and 50.1 the rest of the world. That's how much people are eating it up here. Like I've seen reports that people are seeing this 3 or 4 times. I've seen it 5, which is insane to me. I didn't even think I would see it that many times in theaters when it was leading up to coming out. But here I am, and I did it, and I don't regret it at all.
It's that fun of a movie. That's, I mean, there's so many thoughts on that. I'm going to save that for the next segment here, but I'm not actually surprised though that it did so well overseas. I mean, they had such a diverse cast when they brought everyone together, and I think that really opened up a lot of it. And I think that's why it's going to have the. That's why I think it's going to own the record for highest grossing of all time worldwide.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it will depend on overseas. I mean, currently it would be in the top. It's in the top 15 right now, but it's top 5 domestic, and that's only in 12 days. So the record is 760.5 million by Avatar domestic.
Yeah, we've still got a lot of time
So,
left on it.
I mean, as long as the stuff picks up overseas, which I'm sure it will. I mean, if like Transformers did 771 million overseas alone, if it can do that, like Jurassic World did over 1 billion, and same with Furious 7. If those movies can do that much overseas, I've I'm very confident that Star Wars will at least do 1 billion overseas alone. If it can do 1 billion here, that would be crazy. I think it needs to get close to Avatar's domestic in order to have a shot at beating it. Because I think overseas, like it doesn't hit China till January 9th, so it's got another like basically week and a half until they get it. So there's plenty of time for it to garner up that money. It'll be interesting to see kind of how the breakdown goes between now. It's basically its full second week in release. I mean, we talked about this a little before, but the lowest it did in a single day domestic was 27 million, and that was Christmas Eve, which was still a record.
16 more than the previous with Avatar.
Yeah, I mean, even like this past Saturday, the estimate currently it was only down 17% from the previous Saturday. Like no movies don't do that normally, especially when you open at a $68 million Saturday. Most movies are lucky to do that in a single weekend. Like it's insanity how much money this movie's making, and will continue to make.
Yeah, and then it makes Disney's purchase of the entire Lucasfilm property just look like the buy of the century.
Oh yeah, if they had probably already made most of that back in toy sales alone. Then you add in another $1 billion in theaters, which I know they don't get all the profits for that, but I mean DVD releases will be like sky high. I'm positive. Plus, I mean they'll do like a 7-disc pack together, which I'll be envious and I want to buy, even though I just bought the 6-pack this previous year. So we'll see what happens, but I don't know if it will beat Avatar, but I definitely think it will be a top 5 all time, which means it would have to do only another $500 million worldwide. I think it'll probably get top 3. It'll beat Jurassic World at $1,669,000,000. They're already 2/3 of the way there. So once China kicks in and people still see it for the next month here, because there's nothing really else playing besides Oscar movies, it's gonna be fine.
The Force is definitely with this film.
Yes, this film awoke many Star Wars fans. Speaking of Star Wars, The Force Awakens, that is the movie that we are going to talk about for basically the rest of the podcast. I know we're already going. We've done some good amount of time on news, but for the next 20 30 minutes we're going to focus strictly on Star Wars 7, give our thoughts on it, and speculate on some theories on who is who and blah 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 and spoilers. So yes, this will be full spoiler talk. So do not listen to this next part if you have not seen the movie, because you will have big things spoiled for you.
And if you haven't seen the movie by now, it's really your fault, not ours.
Yeah, I mean, we've given you currently 12 days as we're recording, but by the time you guys hear this, it'll be basically 2 weeks since its release. Um, but yeah, you want me to start and do general thoughts on the movie?
You go for it.
All right. So, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Don't really know where to begin. I thought, because I've listened to a lot of podcasts talk about it and other reviews, and they just kind of break down the movie in chronological order of what it happens.
Start with comparing it against the prequels.
Oh, that's no question. It's like the prequels. Like, if we're gonna do like geography, basically, prequels are down in the bottom of South America. 7 is at the very top of Canada. Like, that's how much of a gap there is. It's a big gap. So there's no comparisons between the prequels and 7, in my opinion. Besides, yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I can't think of anything that would relate them together in any ways. Um, I love the movie more than I thought I would, and I thought I would love it. And I mean, I've seen it 5 times, so that should probably tell you how much I loved it. It was just, I mean, it was something special just to watch. The theater going experience, especially opening night, was phenomenal. I mean, Daisy Ridley as Rey just stole my heart. She will forever have it and hold it. And I mean, she's the find of the century. I mean, I don't know how JJ found her and got it. Basically, somebody had done like 6 TV shows and like single episode appearances to come and deliver that performance. But I mean, that's the biggest standout between um, 7 and the prequels, because you easily could have had an episode 2 through 3 with Hayden Christensen, with with John Boyega and Daisy Ridley, both basically unknowns. And if you don't have a strong director like JJ, they probably give not great performances. And I mean, that's the biggest thing. I think JJ just kind of, he brought us back to the world. Obviously, we're bringing back familiar characters and whatnot, plot devices. It was definitely, like, I think it had some of the moments from basically all the original trilogies films, but it was also a totally different movie all by itself. And I mean, I thought what JJ did with, you know, the way he told the story, the way he shot it, I was a huge fan of the way he did the aerial fights, with just following X-wings, or the tracking shot where Poe is just wiping out everybody on the First Order. I think he kills like 15 dudes in 20 seconds. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I've tried to count how many like people he kills, and it's insane.
It's enough to garner a reaction from Finn, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's a great pilot right there. It's something along those lines. And I mean, their bromance is another standout for me. I mean, they have great chemistry together. Um, BB-8. I mean, come on, how could you not love BB-8? He was just adorable. The thumbs up. I mean, that's still, I've seen it 5 times. I'll laugh every time.
That was one of my favorite parts, absolutely.
I mean, the original characters they brought back, I thought all did very. I mean, you can't really give like performance grades to like C-3PO and R2 because they're just droids. I mean, not just droids, but they are droids. But I thought Han was great. Leia was pretty good. Chewbacca was hilarious. Like, he had some very laughable moments, which I don't really.
Brought some character to a very static character.
Yeah. And then I thought the ending was perfect. The very final 5 minutes or so was just great and sets up everything, but it also I think one of the things that makes it so good um, is its journey. Like right from the get go, the opening crawl, Luke is missing, and the Resistance is trying to find him, and they do it. That's how the movie ends. It's a perfect ending, and then they throw in tons of stuff along the way to make you think, is this person connected to this person, or are they related, or all this stuff. And I can just go on and on and on and rave about this movie, but I'm gonna give you a shot.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think my Star Wars fandom has no limits here. So I had high expectations for this film, for the story it was going to portray because I was such a big fan of the expanded universe, and I wanted to see if they even tried to graft that into the cinematic world, and they did a great job of it. Um, Albeit a little bit differently with Kylo Ren being Ben Solo, Han's son and Han and Leia's son going to the dark side, which pulls from my favorite book series of the expanded universe. That to me made the film. Forget JJ making the franchise fun, real, exciting, and captivating. That one plot point just sold me on the trilogy because I think it was just so important. Um,
About characters, you want to go into Ray and Finn and everybody?
oh, I could go into all of them. Yeah, I think you mentioned it. Finn and Poe, their bromance, their Finn Poe's taken over the internet. That's for sure. But from the very beginning, as soon as Finn is getting ready to get Poe off that Star Destroyer, I was just like, oh man, these guys are fantastic. I've seen Oscar Isaac in Ex Machina and his little bit of acting he did in the Nativity story. Um, but he blew me away right from that beginning, and every scene with John Boyega and Oscar Isaac from then on was immediately my favorite. I haven't seen Attack the Block with John Boyega, his only other feature film that he's done, but how has this guy not been in anything else?
Yeah, I've heard he's great in it, but I've never seen it either.
So that, and like you said, Daisy Ridley as well. She did a fantastic job playing Rey. I'm really anxious to see where her story arc takes her next. Who or what she is or where she comes from. But favorite part, hands down, has got to be, like you mentioned, when Finn is trying to convince BB-8 to tell him where the Resistance base is so he can maintain his cover with Rey. And once they reach an agreement, Finn gives him the thumbs up. BB-8 shoots out and ignites a lighter to imitate the same gesture, and that to me, I just lost it there, and I thought that was just classic.
Yeah, I mentioned I think my single favorite scene is the attack at Maz Kanata's place, and it's showing Poe just wreck everybody. That's probably just because of the way it's shot, and I mean, you don't like in Star Wars, you don't see like people watching aerial assaults. Like that was something totally original to the franchise, and something you don't really see in movies at all. Really, like you don't see a grounds person's point of view of an aerial fight most often. Like the only one I can think of is Fury, um, I think it's World War II movie, with Brad Pitt and Shia LaBeouf and all these people, and they have a similar scene, but it's not nearly as awesome as the one in here. But one thing I realized neither of us really talked about is Kylo. Kylo blew my mind, basically, just because he is. We've talked about this a little bit before. Just watching the original trilogy, he is so different from Vader in basically every way. Besides the mask and both being associated with the dark side of the Force, I mean, they're so different. I mean, Darth Vader shows basically no emotion at all until episode 6 at the very end. Kylo, it's like emotion, 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 like all throughout. And him talking with, him speaking to the Darth Vader's helmet, I thought was great. The basically the new abilities they gave him, being able to like freeze people and bullets in their path was amazing. Like right from that opening part where he freezes Poe and his shot, I was like, okay, I'm sold. This guy's gonna be great. I was a little worried just because there were rumors that he could die and whatnot. He doesn't die, thankfully. We're pretty sure. It's kind of ambiguous, but there's no way they killed him.
Lots of speculation he doesn't make it off Star Killer base, but with Snoke informing Hawks to get the hell out of there, Ren is alive and he's returning for episode 8. Yeah. And I'm ready to see where he goes next. I think like the coolest thing is he's an underdeveloped. He's not fully developed yet. His interaction with Han before that. Rest in peace, Solo. He even tells him he's struggling with the path he's chosen, and he needs help fully devoting himself to the dark side. And like seeing that was almost a little bit reflects Anakin's move against Mace Windu in Episode 3. In terms of character development, one act that'll actually send you over the top, and yeah, that to me is like the funnest part of it.
Yeah, it's just the emotional complexity he has as a character. I mean, it's something we not only did Star Wars not really do with any of their main villains so far, but not many movies do in general. I mean, there's great villains. I mean, Darth Vader is a great villain, but he's not emotionally complex as Kylo Ren is from the get-go. But I mean, those are always the best villains in my opinion. I know you just finished watching Jessica Jones, and David Tennant is phenomenal as the villain just because of the way he brings the character to life. And I thought Adam Driver did the exact same thing with Kylo, just being able to kind of feel for him at points. You're just like, okay, I understand why you're doing this. I don't know why you turned, but I mean, you kind of feel bad for him at certain points. And I mean, where it's going to lead from here, no idea.
Yeah, I mean, Kylo Ren, Adam Driver, you hate him from the very beginning, and then you learn who he is, and suddenly he's not so bad anymore, even though he just ordered an execution of an entire village. You're like, oh, well, maybe he's going to be brought back to the light side. And JJ makes you believe for just maybe 3 seconds that that's going to happen. And then the sun goes out, and you lose maybe one of your favorite characters that ever existed in Star Wars.
Josh sheds a tear.
I'm okay, though.
Did you have is that a problem with the movie? Did you have any problems with it, really?
I don't see that part as a problem. I hated it, but for the film to do that was actually really smart because Harrison Ford's enthusiasm about the Star Wars franchise has always been mocked or made fun of from the fact that he wanted his character to die in 5, if not 6. People saw that as a way for him just to make a way out of the franchise. But the way they did that was they gave Han's character one last emotional depth, and then, you can quietly put him away. So, not quietly, obviously, but...
Yeah, it's a problem kind of with just the story of it, but I just don't understand why it's not in there, just because the focus is solely on Rey and Finn and Kylo, basically, throughout the whole movie, and Poe at certain points as well, but it's their stories. But the part where the Star Killer base is used for the first time to blows up the Hosnian system, that was confusing the first time I saw it, just because they say Hosnian system really quick, and they blow up those 5 planets, and you have no idea what they are, and like you have to go back and rewatch it really to catch it. At least I did. That's where, or even read, like do research on the Hosnian system and the New Republic to find out that's where the New Republic is based was in the Hosnian system at that point in time. So the New Republic is gone as far as we know at this point, and it's kind of skipped over so quickly that you don't really understand the magnitude of what just happened. And even like now, but it's not anything big enough to make me like hate the movie or like knock it down. Just because I thought they skipped all that explanation and dialogue because that was such a major criticism of the prequels is how much sitting around and talking they did and about government. I'm sure Jay just probably like, no, we're not gonna do any of that. Let's just blow up these planets. I'm sure there's at one point a scene of explanation on where the Resistance and New Republic and First Order all lie within the galaxy, but who knows?
Yeah, he tried so hard to make the film fast and fun that he just barely can get. He tried so hard to not make an overtly political film that he left out some key relationship explaining with the New Republic, the Resistance, and the First Order. The First Order's part is, you can discern that really well from the ashes of the Empire. But why does the Resistance exist? Why is it not directly connected to the New Republic? That's something that I really hope Episode 8 explains, or at least they release some kind of book or...
You just need an explanation for the relationship and everything, basically, right? Yeah. Yeah, I know some people were disappointed with Phasma and basically her role in the film, and listening to other people who know much more about Star Wars than I do, and about like the comics and the books and everything, um, they mentioned that in the Prelude comic or the written version of the Star Wars 7 story, one of the promotional books that were attached with Star Wars basically explains that Phasma and thought Finn was like going to be the best stormtrooper of all time, just because of the way he tested and everything. So his switch could have been so much more if that was kind of explored a little bit at some point, like maybe before they leave. It's Phasma talking to Finn, being like, "It's your first mission. Like, you do this and this and this, and you'll move up the ranks really quickly." But that's not really explored, and Phasma doesn't die. She's come back from episode 8, so she made it out of the. If she was even put in the trash compactor at some point, she made it out of there alive. But that's only the like other like real minor complaint. I didn't really notice it at that point. It was kind of at the moment the movie ended. I was like, Phasma's not really in that, but it's okay because Kylo's in it a lot, Rey's in it a lot, and I think the characters you're supposed to really bond with are in it the most, and that's smart.
Yeah, just like you said, though, I was a little bit... It wasn't until the end of the film when I was like, oh, Gwendoline Christie's character, Captain Phasma, didn't get much screen time. Maybe 4 or 5 shots, I think is what I tried to count. And I don't think she's done with. You wouldn't go out and get someone with Gwendoline Christie's talent and then toss her away just that fast.
Yeah. We already kind of briefly talked about Kylo killing his father, Han. I was perfectly okay with it. It didn't really have the... I thought if they did kill somebody, it'd be a little bit more emotional at the time for me. I was shocked that it happened, but the lead up to the death is very predictable. Because you know right when Han sees Kylo and he steps up on that bridge, like, okay, he's gone. Like, he's not coming back. There's no way. But like even when he killed him, I was still like, what? They killed Han Solo.
They did it in such a way that when Han's not coming back, and that's what got me. I was like, oh, it's not even ambiguous. He's actually done.
Oh yeah, he got stabbed through the heart, fell down a tunnel, into a planet that exploded with the sun. You cannot come back from that, no matter what people tell you.
Oh yeah, it's you don't really escape that.
No. Kylo's mentor is Snoke, Supreme Leader Snoke, who's only in the movie for like 3 shots or something like that. He's not in it very much at all, and I was okay with that. But when you first see him, he is this 25-foot tall giant sitting on a throne, which thankfully is a hologram, and he's actually only going to be like 7 feet tall. Because seeing Luke or Rey fight a giant would be really weird and distracting.
I was really happy to see when he dissipated from General Hawks and Ren's view, because I was like, oh great, the awful CGI is back.
Yeah. Which, I mean, the CGI of in itself wasn't terrible, and hopefully, I mean, there's parts you definitely can tell it's CGI. So hopefully, when they scale it down to only be a 7-foot tall guy, it's not as noticeable or bad. But we don't really know anything about Snoke, where he comes from, where he's at, why, and how he got Ben/Kylo to switch sides. Do you have any theories?
I don't have any theories about that. I have read one book, The Star Wars Aftermath, Journey to the Force Awakens, and it does make allusions to the idea that Snoke is someone who's actually been in the Empire for a while, and he's the key leader in the creation of the First Order. But outside of that, there's nothing else mentioned about him. So he seems like an entirely new character to these films.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't really have any idea who he could be. Some people think he's Darth Plagueis, who's the Emperor's master. I don't know how that would happen, but I mean, he has those weird scars and his face is all deformed. He's like has like a two-face thing from Dark Knight going on. You can like see part of the inside of his jaw. His head looks like bashed in a little bit from the back. But I can't wait to see him more and finish the training of Kylo. Which, speaking of which, really very quickly, that final fight between him and Rey was fantastic, and I loved it. And speaking of Rey,
all right, and speaking of that final battle, didn't you think it was odd that she was able to use the Force so well in that final battle, in those final moments on Starkiller Base with the mind tricking and then battling with Kylo in that forest?
a little bit, but it will get into theories, which we're going to talk about right now, anyways, of where Rey came from, because that's the big mystery throughout the film. Is when you first see her on Jakku, she's like, I'm waiting for my family. And then Luke's lightsaber calls out to her. And then she has those crazy visions where the first part is her walking through Cloud City, where in episode 5, Darth Vader and Luke have their showdown, which apparently at one point they shot a reverse angle of that to see the fight from her perspective, which I really hope is included in the bonus features of the DVD or whatever. And then it shows Luke touching R2, Kylo killing a dude, and then Rey as a young girl watching a ship fly away. So, the theory that I have, I don't know, I thought I convinced you at one point that I was right, but I think we're kind of splitting apart at this point, is there's been rumors that she's Luke's daughter, that she's Obi-Wan's daughter or granddaughter. I hope she's just a nobody. Because, I mean, Force users arise all the time. You don't have to be from a lineage of Force users to have the Force within you or learn how to control it. So, my theory is that she is not Luke's daughter. She's not Obi-Wan's granddaughter. She's just somebody random. I wouldn't be surprised if she had a Jedi for a parent, like somebody from like the comics or a TV show, just like a subtle tie-in, like Kanan or Ezra from Rebels, but they'd have to survive the show at this point, and who knows if that's going to happen. But the reason I think that is because of that moment where she kind of realizes she can control the Force, and when Kylo's interrogating her and trying to get the piece of Luke's map, final piece, out of her head, and then she pushes him back at the very end of the fight, and then she reads his mind. She's like, "You're afraid that you won't be as good as Darth Vader," And I didn't really think this at first, but I think it's something that's po- possible. But there's some people who think that when she's in Kylo's mind, because Kylo can see her thoughts, and he talks about an ocean and an island, which just so happens to be where Luke was found. Crazy. Um, so I think she was trained at a young age by Luke, but when I'm not sure, I think Kylo is the one that saved her ultimately. So I don't know if they have some sort of. I mean, maybe they are. Maybe she's Luke's daughter, and then Kylo took his cousin from her father so that he couldn't train her. But the first point when Kylo he destroys all that equipment, and then the uh, resistance dude, not the resistance, the first order guys, like, and they were helped by a girl on Jakku, and he goes, "What girl?" Then Force chokes him. He knows there's some girl on Jakku that's potentially very powerful. I think that's the way I interpreted it. And then if she was taken as a child and had previous training, because most Jedi's are trained at a very young age, except for Luke and Anakin. Even though Anakin was a lot younger than Luke was, but basically her mind was wiped. Kylo left her, thinking nobody would ever find her. She would never figure out her true identity and powers, and he told her just to wait for her family. She doesn't know who her family is, and then Maz tells her in the temple after the whole dream sequence, the people you are waiting for are not coming to Jakku, but there is someone who can help you. And then Rey says, Luke. So that makes it seem like Luke isn't part of her past. Or that Luke isn't the person who left her there. So I don't know. What are you thinking?
I had a similar take on it, that Rey had to be somebody that was non-connected to the Skywalker solo line. And then I thought about what Luke's name means, which is bringer of light. What is Rey? Ray of light, sunshine. So I found that connection, and that got me thinking, okay, so maybe she is a Skywalker, because if Ben is the only one from the Skywalker solo line now, and he's going to be the antagonist for these next two films outside of Snoke, then there's got to be somebody else to continue that line. And if we learned anything from the expanded universe and Luke's take on being a Jedi, whether they grafted this over or not, I don't know. But we could easily see that Luke's not against getting married and having a family. So that makes the Jedi Academy going wrong that much more devastating if he lost maybe his wife or other Jedi trainees. Because also when Rey has that flashback, we also get a glimpse of an entire group of the Knights of Ren. So it may not have just been Kylo causing havoc on the Jedi Academy. It could have been an entire force, which makes it a little bit more believable that Ben or Kylo was taken from the Academy and trained underneath Snoke.
Do you think those other Knights of Ren are also former Padawans of Luke? Or are you not sure? Because Kylo's the one with the lightsaber. But I've seen some people think that they were all taken from the same academy, basically.
That's highly possible. I don't know. I mean, at this point, we're all speculating. But from with them all having the same mask, it almost leads me to believe that they're a group of Darth Vader emulators. And who do you go after to take Darth Vader's place? A Skywalker or a Solo? Or both. So obviously maybe that's where Ben was taken, and Rey, I'm talking about Rey, aren't we? And maybe, okay. And that's where Ben's transition to the dark side happens. But back to terms with Rey, I think as well that she may have been trained by the Force, been a part of that academy, and after everything's gone wrong, Luke takes her to Jakku. Because I just found it so odd that the last piece of the map to where he is happens to be on the same planet where somebody strong in the Force just happens to be who clearly has a off-world past.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. And I think, yeah, we both agree that she was trained previously because I think when Kylo's messing with her head and stuff, that it kind of unlocks something with Rey because she kind of just has that moment where she's she starts looking at him and pushing back, and you can kind of see him going, what is happening right now? And then does the same thing in the final fight with him. She just closes her eyes, relaxes, and kind of summons basically all of her training. I would assume she had at that point of a 5-year-old, and starts kicking butt.
Yeah, it sort of invokes back to the teaser trailers that we saw of Maz talking with. Now, I don't know if she's talking, but she's doing voiceover as we see scenes, and the final part is, it's calling to you, just let it in. So, if the title of the movie is The Force Awakens, that means it's been there, probably was there, but had just been sleeping over that time period that Rey was on Jakku.
What do you expect or want to see happen in Episode 8?
I want to see more with Finn and Poe and see them take on the First Order together with BB-8 in tow. A little bit of explanation with the Resistance and New Republic connection and the fallout from having their capital wiped off the face of the Earth. Well, wiped out from the galaxy, if you will. And obviously the Rey backstory. I think there's something hyper interesting there, and I am ready to see that unveiled.
Yeah, for me, it's really, I want to see Rey and Luke interact a lot. I want to see Snoke and Kylo interact a lot. I want to see Poe and Finn interact against Phasma. I think them two going up against her in some sort of weird, I don't know what kind of side mission they would need to be on, but something where those paths cross again, I think is very interesting. But yeah, I want to see Rey and Luke train together, and I think we're going to get 2 Force Ghost appearances in the movie. One on the light side of Yoda, appearing to Luke as he mentors Rey, and then one on the dark side of, are you ready for this? Hayden Christensen talking to Kylo about the dark side, because there were rumors, and it just is reported a couple of days ago that at one point there was supposed to be a Hayden Christensen Force Ghost, but it was not like the one we saw at the end of episode 6 of the special editions. It's him and like a half robotic face or something, where like it's clearly like a half thing. And it made me think even more that this is a possibility, because when Kylo's talking to Darth Vader's helmet, he says something along the lines of, show me the way again. So that leads me to believe that at some point the Darth Vader helmet or the Force Ghost of Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader appeared to Kylo and showed him the dark side and how powerful he could be with it. So I don't know. That's kind of what I'm hoping happens.
If Hayden Christensen does make a return as a Force Ghost or in any capacity, I will be excited and hopeful that he can actually, bring that connection from the prequels to this sequel trilogy.
Yeah. So that is our entire discussion on Star Wars The Force Awakens. It was a long one. I'm sure we both have more to say, but for time reasons, we're going to move on to our final segment. We're going to end every podcast with some sort of top 5 list or top 10 list or something. And since it is Star Wars, we're going to rank the Star Wars films from best to worst in our personal opinions. You want to start?
Oh, here we go. Okay, yeah, I will kick us off. All right, at number 1, I have Star Wars Episode 5. Just with the first lightsaber, the first great lightsaber battle. It takes you to a couple different great locations, especially Cloud City, one of my favorite. And there's no Death Star. That's my favorite. Second up is Star Wars Episode 7. I've never had so much fun at a film, and with all the new characters and excitement around there, that definitely falls at number 2. Number 3, I have Episode 6. Number 4 is Episode 4. And then, less notably, 5, 6, and 7 are Episode 3, Episode 2, and Episode 1, respectively.
All right, that's a good list. I respect it. My favorite is The Force Awakens, just because, and we talked about this when we did our special podcast of the Jedi Archives, which you can listen to at another website. We'll link it in the podcast. But I mean, The Force Awakens is it awoke the Star Wars fan in me, I guess you could say. It was something where I've seen all the other movies beforehand, and I rewatched all of them before seeing Episode 7. But it's just kind of the memories I'll always have of watching Episode 7 for the first time that I don't have with any of the other ones, really. And yeah, and with everything I've mentioned before on why that's my favorite. 2 was tough. It was a very close call, but I gave it to Empire Strikes Back because, as you said, I mean, the locations are all memorable, even though it's really only 3 locations: Hoth, Dagobah, Cloud City, and then the asteroid field, which I'm not a huge fan of. But yeah, the final fight between Darth and Luke is great. It has the "I am your father" moment. I'm not a big fan of Yoda's first like 10 minutes in the movie, where he's like a goofy weirdo. Once he reveals himself to be Yoda, then he is all wise and it's good, and it's the Yoda that I like. A New Hope is 3 for me, because it has a lot of similar beats to 7. And I think 7 took a lot of that from 4. So that was really tough between 4 and 5 on which was going to be my second favorite. Fourth one is 6, Return of the Jedi. Even though it has the best lightsaber battle, definitely the original trilogy, it has the best one at the very end. I'm not a fan of the Ewoks, really, and it's not because of their look or their size or anything. It's just, I don't know. I don't really care for that whole thing.
I think you've just angered a lot of people with that.
That's possible.
The Ewoks are adorable.
But that was a reason, I'm going back a little bit, to why A New Hope fell behind Empire here, was because the final the Obi-Wan Darth lightsaber battle in 4 is so boring. It's not good, but it's understandable because Obi-Wan's an old dude and it's their first time doing a lightsaber battle in the Star Wars universe, so it's understandable that's not great. So that was a reason why I put Empire above A New Hope. And then I have Revenge of the Sith, Episode 3, at 5, and then Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace, just because they're all terrible, but they gradually get better.
Yeah, I agree with that. And let me make a quick disclaimer. When I say bad, I mean in terms of Star Wars as a whole. I still enjoy watching those films, though those are my childhood. But in hindsight, they could have been so much better.
Yeah, I can honestly enjoy watching 3. I like the Obi-Wan Anakin storyline in that movie. It's the best one. And then it's also where Anakin fully turns. Attack of the Clones is good. Not great. Phantom Menace is not good. In really any regard, except for the Darth Maul fight. That is the redeeming quality of that movie.
When your movie's plot driver is taxation of trade routes, really?
Yeah.
That's why there's a blockade. It could have just been a war or somebody wanting to be a dictator with their new droid army or like a test run, but that setup to me now just disappoints me so much.
It's not great. But yeah, that's our tops. That's how we rank the Star Wars movies. I don't think we have any really other gripes with the lists. I'm not surprised that you have A New Hope at 4, right?
I do have A New Hope at 4.
I mean, It's not uncommon. I know a lot. I mean, I think it's uncommon that both of us have seven in our top two. That's definitely not the way I've been seeing it online and stuff. But I mean, a lot of those people grew up watching the original trilogies in theaters, so it's completely understandable that they would like the original trilogy. They have those connections, those memories to the original trilogies that we don't really have, or at least especially I don't. You may have a little bit more than I do, but yeah, those are our top sevens, our top seven Star Wars movies, and that's going to be the end of the first episode of Friends and Film. So, we are not dead set on a return as of right now. I think we're going to return in 2 weeks. So you guys will be hearing the next episode on the 12th of January, hopefully. That is the current plan. Um, with hopefully we'll have a chance to look at The Revenant and Hateful Eight at some point. One of them, I'm sure we'll talk about. I know that Hateful Eight opens here this week, but I don't know about The Revenant or when we're getting that one yet. If worst case scenario, we only see one of them or none of them, we will do a most anticipated list of 2016 and maybe a wrap up of 2015, kind of go through our favorite movies of the year. But that's the end of our podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want more updates throughout the week on just kind of the process that we're going through recording, or possible stories, you guys can follow us at Friends and Film on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Coops_hoops.
And you can follow me, Josh, on Twitter at Straley _.
Yeah, I think that's all the links. You guys will obviously be listening to this on either YouTube or SoundCloud at the moment. Hopefully, at some point in the near future, we'll be able to get on iTunes. Then you guys can subscribe, whatever. But if you liked this, share it, like it, tell everybody you know about it. Give us your top seven list, your theories on Ray, which one for episode 8. Real quick ending point on episode 8. Ryan Johnson, I think, is going to be the perfect director for it. Um, what he did with the little kid in Looper makes me really excited for what he's going to do with Kylo. But enough Star Wars talk. Thank you for listening. I know it's long, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, give us your feedback on everything, and we will see you in a few weeks. Thanks for listening, guys.
Take care.